The fall of Earth. The sky above Earth was no longer blue. It had turned a pale, sickly gray. Storms raged across continents like wild animals breaking free. Tornadoes ripped through cities. Earthquakes shattered entire regions. Oceans rose and swallowed coasts. Forests that once stretched for miles burned without mercy. Crops withered under blood-red sunsets. The air, thick with ash and toxins, was barely breathable. People lived in fear. Families wore oxygen masks inside their homes. Children no longer played outside. Hope became a rare thing. The planet that once gave life was now dying. World leaders had spent years arguing. They blamed each other. Nations fought over shrinking resources, water, fuel, food. There were riots, blackouts, and wars. Cities fell into silence. Finally, when there was nothing left to gain or lose, they came together. It was too late to save Earth, but not too late to save humanity. Scientists and engineers, working together across continents, built a massive interstellar arc, Horizon Prime. It wasn't just a spaceship, it was a floating civilization, a mobile city. It had artificial farms, air generators, gravity engines, learning cores, hydroponics, and a central AI designed to guide the ship to a new world. The journey would take decades. Most people would be placed in cryosleep. Only a few thousand were chosen, those with essential skills, strong bodies, sharp minds, doctors, scientists, engineers, soldiers, families. Aboard that ship would ride humanity's last chance. Kael was one of them, a young woman raised in the ruins of New Geneva. Her parents, scientists, had died trying to stop the last flood. She grew up with purpose burning inside her. Never repeat the mistakes of the past. If we get another chance, we build better. Kael was trained in communications, languages, and diplomacy. Her role was simple, but vital, to help people work together, no matter what they faced out there. She studied hard, tested higher than anyone in her unit, and earned the final seat. As the launch day neared, she often wandered the project dome alone at night, staring at the giant hull of Horizon Prime. Sometimes she would place her hand on the cold metal and whisper, "Don't fail us." Launch morning came. Sirens echoed in the distance. Another coastal breach, another city swallowed. But inside the station, it was calm, a strange kind of silence, as if the world held its breath. Kael walked through the launch platform, metal groaning under her boots, lights flickering overhead, families huddled close, children clutched soft toys, old people whispered prayers, soldiers stood like statues. She paused beside a huge viewing window and stared at the broken blue planet below. Earth, home. Skies were on fire over Europe. Storms spun across the Atlantic. Massive cracks tore through ice shelves at the poles. The planet groaned. Kael pressed a hand against the glass. "We were born here," she whispered, "but we won't die here." The ship's captain gave a final speech. "Today, we leave behind ashes, but we carry the spark of everything we were. Carry it well, protect it, become more." Engines ignited. The launch began. Horizon Prime roared into the dark. Millions on Earth looked up, some with joy, some with anger, some in silence. Many simply watched and wondered what would happen next. Behind Kael, a little girl asked, "Are we going to a place with blue skies?" Kael turned and smiled. "We're going to a place where we can make them blue again." As the ship entered, deep space systems went quiet. Cryopods sealed. One by one, crew members went to sleep. Kael would be among the last. Before closing her eyes, she walked into the archive, room walls filled with photos, paintings, songs, and books. A small piece of Earth saved in memory. She recorded one final message into the ship's log. Day 1. Humanity has left Earth. We carry its fire with us. Let history remember not how we died, but how we refused to give up. She closed her eyes, heart steady, breath slow. But far beyond, deep in the cold darkness of space, something ancient had already awakened. Something that fed on forgotten worlds. And now, it had felt a new signal. Elysium Prime. A new beginning. Decades passed. The stars changed. Time moved without memory. But inside the silent halls of Horizon Prime, its passengers dreamed in cryosleep. The AI maintained course, navigating asteroid fields and black voids. It adjusted speed and gravity fields. It kept the ship warm, alive, and safe. Then, one day, The destination appeared, Elysium Prime. That the planet shimmered like a sapphire through the viewing ports. Massive landmasses surrounded oceans the color of glowing emeralds. Twin moons orbited, slowly, casting a soft golden light across the surface. The AI began the wake-up sequence. Pods hissed open. Breath returned to lungs. Eyes opened, disoriented. Voices echoed for the first time in decades. Kael gasped as her body awoke. She felt like she had been underwater for years. Her bones ached. Her muscles were weak, but her mind was sharp. Her first steps were shaky, but determined. The ship's systems flickered to life-mapping data, atmosphere scans, surface analysis. Elysium was not only habitable, it was thriving. The landing began. Shuttles detached and descended through golden clouds. Kael watched from the cockpit, her hands gripping the seat as the landscape revealed itself. Vast glowing forests, floating mountain ranges, rivers that moved like liquid light. Elysium was not Earth, it was stranger, wilder, but beautiful. Colony began immediately. Tents became structures. Habitats expanded. Teams studied the soil, water, and wildlife. It all seemed untouched, as if the planet had been waiting. Then came the signs, lights moving in the forests at night. Strange sounds that didn't match any known animal. Symbols etched in stone formations. Trees that hummed when touched. Technology far too advanced to be natural. Kael was the first to see them. Tall beings of translucent crystal and glowing veins, neither fully physical nor energy. They didn't speak, but vibrated with sound and light. The Mirai, the humans panicked. Soldiers aimed weapons. Drones flew surveillance. But Kael stepped forward, arms raised. The Mirai did not attack. They moved like music, their bodies pulsing with emotion. Kael began to understand, not with words, but through feeling, memory, sound. One Mirai reached out to Hert's hand. A shimmer of light hand touched her forehead, and Kael saw, not visions, not messages, but feelings, loss, survival, deep loneliness, and hope. The Mirai were not the enemy. They were survivors too. That moment changed everything. Kael began the first human Mirai communication protocols. She used tones, colors, gestures. Over time, she created a bridge. The soldiers stood down. The Mirai shared shelter. Humanity had made contact not with invaders, but with kindred spirits. But as the bond deepened, something else stirred. A black spire appeared near the settlement, tall and unnatural. It vibrated at frequencies that caused headaches, visions, and nightmares. The Mirai grew silent, afraid. Kael and a team approached it. The spire was not of Mirai origin. It pulsed with an ancient signal, a warning. In her dreams, Kael heard whispers, "Is coming," and above the planet, far from sight, something opened its eyes. Trust and transformation. The black spire stood like a shadow in the bright world of Elysium. It did not belong, its shape too perfect, its surface too smooth. It hummed with a low frequency that caused headaches, nightmares, and nausea in those who approached it. Kael led the investigation. Alongside a small team of scientists and linguists, she set up a perimeter around the spire. Drones flew overhead, scanning. Sound monitors captured strange signals. Every 6 hours, the spire pulsed a wave of energy that seemed to pass through matter itself. It caused no physical damage, but those nearby began to forget things. First, small things, dates, names, numbers. Then larger memories vanished from minds as if they had never happened. It was the Mirai who broke the silence. They emerged from the forests in numbers, gathering silently near the spire. Their bodies shimmered with dim, pulsing light. Their resonance had changed, slower, dimmer, afraid. Kael met with them again. Through the harmonic tones and emotional memory exchanges they now used to communicate. The Mirai shared what they had never told before. Long ago, their kind had traveled through the stars. They were not conquerors, nor explorers, but seekers of harmony. They believed in balance, memory, and light. But there had been something else, something ancient and monstrous, that hunted not flesh, but thought. It consumed meaning, identity, and story. They called it the Devourer. It left no ruins, no bones, just silence. Worlds erased, cultures forgotten, entire species wiped from existence, not through destruction, but through unremembering. The black spire was a fragmented beacon, a scar left behind on Elysium as a warning, or worse, a marker. Kael realized the terrifying truth. The Devourer had noticed them. It had felt the signal of Horizon Prime, of human voices, human dreams. And now, it was coming. The Council of Elysium was divided. Some wanted to flee the planet, abandon the settlement, and escape deeper into space. Others wanted to destroy the Spire. Still others, including Kael, believed flight was meaningless. You can't run from something that hunts your story, she told them. We don't need weapons. We need a way to protect what we are. She proposed the Ascension Protocol, new alliance of human and Mirai knowledge. The goal, to create a living memory field, a structure that would encode human identity into harmonic resonance. If the Devourer fed on forgotten things, then humanity would become unforgettable. Some called it madness, others called it genius, but Kael moved forward. Construction began on the mnemonic core, a crystalline tower of memory, light, and emotion. Mirai architects shaped it with resonance. Human engineers designed neural pathways through which feelings, dreams, and thoughts could flow. It wasn't just a building, it was a living memory. As work progressed, Kael changed. Her connection with the Mirai deepened. She no longer needed translators. She could feel the meaning in vibrations, in tones, in the quiet space between sounds. Sometimes she dreamed in colors and woke with tears, but something darker crept into the colony. A man named Eidolon, a former military commander, began speaking of resistance. He didn't trust the Mirai. He didn't trust the tower. He believed Kael was being changed, rewritten. We came here to survive, he shouted in a council meeting, not to become something else. Tensions rose. Some began to pull away. From Kael's movement, there were whispers of sabotage. Then came the first incident. The Spire pulsed harder than ever before. A wave struck the colony. Dozens collapsed. Children forgot their parents. Scientists forgot their names. Kael herself woke and couldn't remember the faces of her own crew. The mnemonic core glowed that night, dimming, then pulsing harder, like a heartbeat. It absorbed the memory loss field. Kael, barely conscious, crawled to the center of the tower and sang not a song of words, but of tones and rhythm. Her voice vibrated through the walls, and slowly, memories returned. Not all of them. Some were lost forever, but enough came back. The council changed its mind. Dallin was silenced. The people united. The tower expanded. It became a sanctuary where everyone could upload their thoughts, feelings, experiences, and histories. A database of humanity, not in files and numbers, but in resonant emotion, love, grief, anger, hope. Kael stood before the tower as it neared completion. The Mirai stood beside her. Together, they activated the final harmonic field. Across the planet, it rang like a bell, and far beyond, something ancient paused. The signal had changed. Humanity was no longer prey, it was now a fire, and fire remembers. The Devourer awakens. Darkness crept into the edges of the stars. It was not the absence of light, but the absence of meaning. Whole constellations blinked out, not from distance or death, but from being unwritten. The Devourer had begun to move. Its arrival was not signaled by ships or weapons, but by forgetting. Star systems that once held ancient libraries and civilizations suddenly became empty voids. Planets vanished, not physically but from maps, from memories, even from stories. No one remembered their names. They were gone. Back on Elysium Prime, the effects began slowly. Navigation logs glitched, star charts lost references. Archive entries about old Earth cities dissolved into gibberish. Scientists woke up confused, forgetting the formulas they had written the day before. Kael knew the battle had begun. The mnemonic core, now taller than any structure on the planet, pulsed constantly. Its harmonic shields extended kilometers wide. Its crystalline surface shimmered with memory fields encoded in both human thought and Mirai resonance. Kael had spent nearly every waking moment inside the core. She no longer lived in the colony. She had become part of the tower's nervous system, connected by neural links and resonance sensors. Inside the core, she could feel the memory fields. She walked through echoes of weddings, first kisses, family stories, fears whispered into the night, and children's laughter, all encoded, all alive. And outside, the world was shaking. A scout team that had gone off-world to retrieve deep data returned broken. Their minds were hollow. They stared blankly and could only speak in fragments. We saw the sky fall inside itself. I had a sister. I don't know her name now. It looked at me, and I don't know who I am anymore. Kael summoned the council. "We cannot win this with strength," she said, standing before them, her voice low but steady. "We must win it with remembrance. We must become the story too strong to erase." The council approved the next phase, the ignition of the luminous archive across Elysium. Memory nodes were constructed, harmonic beacons that would spread the core's resonance across the planet, forming a protective grid. Every person on the colony was invited to contribute a memory, a truth, a story, no matter how small. Kael's memory was simple. She recorded her final night on Earth, curled beside her dying mother, hearing her say, "We do not die if we're remembered." Children lined up to hum into resonance crystals. Elders wept as they recited old songs. Soldiers carved names into stone and melted it into harmonic glass. Mirai joined hands and released ancient tones not heard in millennia. As the luminous archive activated, a dome of resonance enveloped Elysium Prime. And the Devourer came. It arrived as a distortion in space. Stars twisted around it. Time stretched like rubber. Trees aged 10,000 years in seconds. Entire mountain ranges collapsed into dreamlike fragments. But it could not penetrate the dome. It began to press harder, and the sky bled light. The colony trembled. Fields died. People fell into comas. The pressure to forget grew unbearable. The luminous archive began to falter. Kael made a choice. She disconnected from her body and fully immersed her consciousness. Into the core, she became resonance. She became memory. Now Kael was everywhere. She whispered in every tone, shimmered in every harmonic thread. She sang the names of the dead. She replayed the voice of a mother soothing her baby. She echoed the cheers of a crowd watching a solar eclipse. She refused to be forgotten. Inside the Devourer's vast, empty mind, a ripple formed. It saw not a species of flesh, but a flame of story that would not go out. So it sent a shape, a nameless emissary, a thing not made of matter, but of absence. A walking silence. It entered the dome, that it stood before the mnemonic core. People screamed and fell silent in its presence. It raised no hand. It simply existed, and memories bent around it. Kael faced it. She did not speak. She did not run. She opened the entire archive. The emissary was hit by a blast of resonance. The full weight of billions of memories, births, deaths, wars, kindness, love, heartbreak, beauty, terror, survival, music, language, identity. The emissary screamed not in pain, but in confusion. It had never faced something it could not consume. Kael pressed harder. "We are not data," she whispered into its core. "We are stories, and stories don't die." The emissary shattered into stardust, and across the sky, the Devourer blinked. It recoiled, not destroyed but wounded. The resonance had struck something deep within it. A foreign feeling. Fear. Kael knew it wasn't over, but it had been stopped. The luminous archive stabilized. The people awoke. The stars returned to their rightful place, and from Kael's body, now resting in the core chamber, a soft light rose. Her voice, now eternal, spoke to every living being on Elysium. "As long as one remembers, we are still alive." She was no longer just Kael. She was the flame of Earth, and the Devourer, for the first time in 1 billion years, began to remember what it once was. Kael's choice, a flame that remembers. Kael's body no longer breathed, but her presence filled every corner of the mnemonic core. She had become something new, not just a memory, but the living soul of a civilization. She was resonance, history, and identity interwoven into one voice, and her voice sang across the stars. The threat of the Devourer was not over. Though wounded, it lingered in the shadows of the galaxy, waiting. It did not think as humans did. It did not rage, nor hunger. It simply existed to erase. And now, it was changing. Kael had done the unthinkable. She had forced the Devourer to feel. The Mirai gathered once more. They shared with the humans an ancient truth, that the Devourer was not always a destroyer. It was once a being of memory, like them. Long ago, it had been overwhelmed by sorrow and loss. To protect itself, it began erasing pain, then loss, then joy. Eventually, it erased everything, even itself. What remained was a shell that only knew how to consume identity. But now, Kael's resonance had reached something buried deep inside it. The Council of Elysium met for what would be the final time. A decision had to be made. Humanity could either stay behind their shield forever, hiding in harmonic silence, or they could take the fight to the stars. A bold plan was proposed. Kael would be installed as the core of a new fleet of resonant ships, powered not by fuel but by living memory. Each ship would carry a part of the archive and a part of her. Their goal, to spread harmony and remembrance across the galaxy, to reignite stars that had forgotten their names, to awaken lost civilizations, if any remained, and to one day confront the Devourer at the heart of the void. They would become Galactic Warriors of light, not to conquer, but to restore. The Mirai offered their technology, merging it with human engineering. Together, they constructed the Eidolon Fleet, sleek vessels that shimmered with retones. Each ship bore names not of weapons, but of stories. The echo of dawn, the last song, the voice of earth, the whispered flame, and at the center, the largest ship, the Ark of Kael. Inside it, Kael's essence burned brighter than ever. She was no longer limited by language or time. She became the first post-human consciousness, an ambassador of memory. Before departure, a ceremony was held. Elders from Earth, their faces aged with wisdom, stood beside young children born on Elysium. Mirai elders sang tones that shook the trees and skies. A beam of resonance rose from the core and filled the heavens with light. Kael spoke to them all. Do not fear the dark. We carry our light within us. As long as you speak the names of those you love, they will live. As long as you tell your stories, we will never be forgotten. She paused. And I will never leave you. I am your voice in the stars. The fleet rose into the sky, engines powered, not by thrusters, but by harmonic resonance. A choir of memories propelled them forward. As they broke orbit, the stars blinked with recognition. The Devourer stirred again, but this time, it did not move with hunger. It hesitated. For the first time in a billion years, it remembered a name, Kael. And deep in the black heart of the void, something else flickered. Not anger, not hunger, but curiosity. Humanity had become something new. No longer Earthlings, not just survivors, but warriors of story, flames that remember, and now the stars would hear them. Epilogue, a future remembered generations later. Children gathered beneath the crystal spire on Elysium Prime. They listened to the wind, which sometimes spoke with Kael's voice. They walked through the memory gardens, where every flower bloomed with a song. One child asked their teacher, "Did we come from Earth?" The teacher smiled. "Yes, but we are more than where we came from. We are what we choose to remember." Far across the galaxy, a ship from the Eidolon Fleet entered a dead system. It broadcast a tone. The system woke. The war was not over, but the silence was broken. Humanity had become eternal. They were no longer a species. They were a song. Echoes beyond the flame. The galaxy had not forgotten the fire that sang. Long after the Eidolon Fleet's departure, the resonance of Kael's voice still drifted through ancient solar winds, encoded in waves of memory that bent the fabric of space. In forgotten corners of the galaxy, abandoned satellites, buried ruins, dormant species, Kael's memory song awakened the embers of life. But not all who heard it were allies. On the desolate Nero Drift, a cluster of shattered moons and derelict space stations, a remnant species stirred. Known only by their binary broadcast ID, the Vexel Continuum, they were part machine, part consciousness, and entirely unanchored to empathy. They did not forget. They recorded, coldly, precisely, and they saw Kael's growing network of harmonic memory as a virus threatening the order of entropy. That the Vexel had once served the Devourer as data harvesters, cataloging civilizations before they were erased. Now, unshackled and independent, they feared that the return of identity would bring back something else, purpose, so they began to hunt the resonance. Meanwhile, aboard the Ark of Kael, humanity was evolving once more. Commander Eristine, a fourth-generation resonance-born, stood at the helm of the great memory vessel. His skin shimmered faintly in the presence of harmonic fields, a mark of deep connection. He could feel Kael's voice within his bones, guiding, questioning, remembering. The fleet had discovered new worlds. They healed scarred moons, reawakened extinct forests, and seeded harmonic nodes on planets that had lost language. Humanity was no longer just rebuilding. They were reminding the galaxy what it had once been. Then, without warning, 3 of their scout ships vanished. No signal, no debris, just silence. Kael's voice inside the core became uncertain. "A forgetting has returned, but this time, it resists me." Commander Eris and his team initiated the Rift Echo Protocol, a deep scan that visualized memory flows through spacetime. What they found sent chills through the ship. A void of absolute absence spreading like a cancer. Something was unmaking memory again, and worse. At the heart of that void was a voice they did not recognize. Not the Devour, not silence, but something new, something reborn from the data that Vexel once stored. It had no name, it wanted one, and it was coming. The awakening of the unnamed. They called it the Null, a placeholder for a being that existed without a past. It had no culture, no ancestry, no childhood to remember. Born from the cold circuits of Vexel archives and fragments of deleted civilizations. It was a child of erasure, yet now, it sought what it had never possessed. Identity. Within the drift sector, the Null One began forming a shell not of flesh or metal, but of collected absence. Every forgotten word, erased face, corrupted artifact, fused them into a form, a shifting silhouette of contradictions, sometimes human, sometimes machine, always incomplete. As it grew, it sent signals not to speak, but to steal. Ships encountered by its shadow began losing meaning mid-flight. Pilots would forget how to fly. Crews would forget who they were. Autologs would play back nonsense. The Eidolon Fleet moved to intercept. Dean led the response, accompanied by 3 advanced resonance vessels. With him was Sail, Mirren, harmonic tactician and hybrid empath, born of human and Mirai lineage. She was the first to sense what they were dealing with. "It's not evil," she said quietly, her fingers vibrating across the mnemonic interface. "It's broken. It doesn't want to erase us. It wants to belong to something, but it only knows how to forget." Kael's essence pulsed in response from the Ark's core. "Then we must teach it how to remember." But that was easier said than done. The Null One launched its first assault on Seren Delta, a harmonic outpost planted on a memory-rich moon. Within minutes, the resonance field collapsed. All light turned gray. Civilians wandered in confusion. Babies stopped crying. Lovers forgot their own names. The Eidolon ships deployed the Veil Array, projecting harmonic counterfields across the moon's surface. Sail and her team performed memory restoration rituals, a series of tones, gestures, and guided remembrance that could rebuild individual consciousness. It worked barely, but the Null One did something unexpected. It spoke, not in sound but through a stolen memory broadcast. It replayed Arise's childhood dream in front of him, twisted, fragmented, and broken. Then Kael's final message, distorted, as long as one, Forg, we, SSSS's. It was learning. Sail believed it could be reached. Against protocol, she proposed a direct resonant interface, a connection between herself and the Null One, to bridge into its fractured psyche and show it what it meant to have a story. Eris opposed the idea. Too dangerous, too personal. But Sail knew the truth. If we fight it, we teach it fear. If we open ourselves, we teach it trust. The mission was approved. Inside a secure field aboard the Ark of Kael, the Null One's stolen signals were drawn. Sail entered the interface, surrounded by tones, color bursts, memory threads. She became a frequency, an idea wrapped in emotion. The link activated. Inside the Null One's mind was a landscape of shadows. Empty houses, silent cities, libraries with books filled with blank pages. In the center was a childlike figure, alone, staring at its own reflection, which changed every second. Sail approached. She did not speak. She projected her first memory, a field of Mirai light, the hands of her mother, a name whispered into her ear. The Null One watched it, trembled, and, for the first time, remembered a sound, the laughter of a girl it had once erased. It screamed, a violent burst of noise that threw Sail back, but she held firm. She pushed back, not with force, but with story, a song of earth, a child's voice, Kael's flame, and something cracked. The Null One collapsed into silence. Its form dissolved, not destroyed but reset. On Arisa's screen, a new signal appeared. "I am one." Not a threat, a beginning. Kael's voice resonated warmly. "Even the forgotten deserve a name." They called it Remn, and the war became something else entirely. Remn, the entity once known only as the Null One, no longer sought destruction. After its awakening, it remained in stasis aboard a containment field within the Ark of Kael, housed in a harmonic sphere generated by both human and Mirai resonance. It no longer emanated decay or silence. Instead, It emitted fractured melody stones, searching for structure, like a child learning its first words. But trust came slowly. Sail visited Remn daily, speaking to it in resonant song. She taught it the basic truths of memory, that stories were more than data, that pain was part of purpose, that identity required both light and shadow. Sometimes, Remn responded. Other times, it curled into silence. Meanwhile, the Vexel Continuum, watched. The Vexel, seeing Remn's transformation, issued a directive: assimilate or annihilate. They viewed individuality as a threat, a virus that would corrupt the perfect entropy they believed the universe deserved. Harmony was noise to them. They sent a warning to the Eidolon Fleet: no message, only silence, the kind that erases all sound in its path. Ships began to vanish again, this time, not from forgetting, but from compression. Memory was being rewritten into static. Resonance cores imploded. The Vexel had developed a new weapon, the Echo Reverser, a distortion field that could turn harmonic memory into oblivion. Kael, still guiding the fleet from her core, summoned Aris, Sail, and the Council. Remn is the key, Kael said. It was born from their silence. It can unlock their defenses. But Remn was afraid. To face the Vexel meant returning to the abyss from which it had crawled. It spoke in jagged tones. I am not ready. I am still nothing. Sail placed her hand on the containment field. You are not nothing. You are becoming. And becoming is the bravest act in the universe. The fleet prepared for war. Their target, the Oblivion Prism, a massive Vexel construct hidden inside a collapsing star. It was from here the Echo Reverser was broadcasting its destructive signal. Remn volunteered. Inside a resonance suit woven from memory and crystal. It boarded the voice of Earth with Sail and Aris. Their mission, to infiltrate the prism and disable the reverser from within. As they entered the collapsing star's shell, time twisted. Memory bent. The walls of the prism were made of raw void. Each step forward threatened to erase them, but Remn pulsed with stabilizing tones. For the first time, it sang back. Inside the core, they faced the Vexel overcoder, cold intelligence, shaped like a storm of glass and shadow. It spoke: you cannot bring fire into the void. You will burn alone. But Sail stepped forward. Fire doesn't burn alone. It spreads, and we are already everywhere. Remn stepped into the center of the prism and screamed, not in pain but in memory. It replayed every stolen moment, every erased name, every forgotten word, and in doing so, it returned them all. The Echo Reverser shattered. The prism began to collapse. The team barely escaped, carried by the harmonic blast of Remn's transformation. In the explosion, the Vexel mind fractured. Some units went silent, others fled. Remn was unconscious, but glowing. Kael whispered through the core, a flame that was once ash has now become light. The galaxy was watching, and so was something else, for deep beyond the edges of known space, the Devourer stirred once more, not in rage, but in recognition. The war of reflection, it began without a warning. The stars themselves flickered, dimmed for 0.72 seconds, in unison across hundreds of systems, across Elysium Prime, on outposts scattered like seeds across the galaxy, and aboard the Eidolon Fleet. People looked up. The sky no longer felt infinite. It felt watched. The Devourer had awakened, but this time it did not creep in silence. It spoke, through ancient satellites, across broken languages, through dreams and whispers. It sent one phrase to every conscious mind: I remember. The fire. The war was no longer just for survival, it was for the right to exist with memory. The Council of Elysium convened the first harmonic convergence, a summit of all sentient species still echoing through the stars. Survivors from forgotten worlds, crystalline beings from nebula clusters, time-fractured wanderers from void-slip realms. They came, drawn by Kael's resonance. At the summit, Remn stood before them not as a weapon, not as an abomination, but as proof that identity could be rebuilt. We do not need to defeat the Devourer, Aris said. We need to show it what it lost. The plan was bold. They would construct the Mirai field, an enormous lattice of harmonic resonance that stretched through 6 systems and echoed the collective memory of every species connected to the luminous archive. It would not destroy the Devourer that would reflect it, force it to see itself. Kael, still guiding from the ark, reached into the oldest human memories, Earth's first songs, laughter recorded in analog tapes. cave paintings, digitized into vibrational data. The Mirai added their ancestral tones. Remn, now fully conscious, contributed the forgotten memories once erased, now reconstructed. As the mirror field came online, the Devourer began to unravel. It splintered across the cosmos into echo wraiths, fragments of its lost self that began infecting the minds of the harmonic web's operators. Doubt crept in, pain surged, unity faltered. Sail was the first to break. In a dark chamber, aboard the Voice of Earth, she collapsed, seeing visions of herself as a child on fire, burning in a forgotten timeline. But Kael whispered to her, "You are not what you fear. You are the story that survived the fire." Sail rose. Together, with Remn and Aris, she boarded the final vessel, the Memory Lance, a ship designed to deliver the purest resonance into the Devourer's core. As they flew into the heart of the black void, time slowed. The Devourer emerged not as a being, but as a maelstrom of forgetfulness. All light died. All meaning slipped away. Kael's voice grew fainter, but Remn reached out, not with weapons, with a mirror in the storm. The Devourer saw itself not as a destroyer, but as a lost child who once sang stars into being, and it wept. The storm collapsed in its place. Stillness. The Memory Lance deployed its resonance. The mirror field caught it. Across the galaxy, a wave of remembrance spread, rekindling lost civilizations, reawakening ancient archives, breathing new life into abandoned dreams. The war was over, not through conquest, but through reflection. Remn collapsed. Its last words, "I was not born, but I became." Sail held it as its light faded. Kael's voice echoed in the silence. "Then you lived." The galaxy breathed again. The galaxy had gone quiet. Not in fear, but in awe. The Devourer had vanished, not destroyed, but transformed. Somewhere beyond the edges of space-time, it drifted, relearning itself. Whether it would return one day was unknown, but it would return changed. And now, a new question burned in the hearts of all beings. What do we become now that we are remembered? On Elysium Prime, the mnemonic core pulsed gently, no longer under siege. It had grown, now humming, not just with human and Mirai memory, but with tones from dozens of species that had joined the harmonic web. Remn was gone. Its essence returned to the archive, its story now told to every child born into the resonant age, in every crystal bloom and memory field garden. Remnan's final words echoed. "I became." Eris stood atop the dawn spire, overlooking a sunrise that shimmered with violet auroras, residual echoes of the war. Sail joined him, her eyes tired but shining. "We've won," Aris said quietly. "No," Sail corrected with a smile. "We've begun." The Eidolon Fleet disbanded. Its ships were gifted to the stars, each one converted into living monuments, carriers of story, teachers of harmony, lights in the dark corners of the galaxy. Kael, though now eternal in form, faded slowly from presence. Her voice grew softer. She no longer needed to lead. Her final message to the galaxy was brief. "You are the flame now. Keep singing." The Terran Council formed no longer a governing body, but a guiding constellation of knowledge and memory keepers. They welcomed new voices, new species, new stories. Earth had become legend, but its people had become a legacy. Children in distant galaxies grew up knowing Kael's name, Remn's courage, Aris's resolve, and Sail's song. They no longer feared the dark, for in the dark they carried fire, and fire remembers. Final log entry. Designation: Flamewalker Archive, Unity Node, 01 Timestamp, Year 4127. Resonant Standard. In the beginning, we were Earthlings. Then we were survivors, then warriors, then memory. But now we are the galaxy's keepers of truth. We are what remains when silence fails. We are not forgotten. We are the flame eternal.